حتى إذا جاءنا وفارت النور قل نحمل فيها من كل زوجين اثنين قل نحمل فيها من كل زوجين اثنين وأهلك إلا من سبق عليك القول وأهلك إلا من سبق عليك القول ومن آمن وما آمن معه إلا قليل وقال اركبوا فيها بسم الله مجريها ومرساها وقال اركبوا فيها بسم الله مجريها ومرساها وقال اركبوا فيها بسم الله مجريها ومرساها إن ربي لغفور رحيم وهي تجري بهم في موج كالجبال ونادى نوح ابنه وكان في معزل يا بني اركب معنا يا بني اركب معنا يا بني اركب معنا ولا تكن مع الكافرين وهي تجري بهم في موج كالجبال ونادى نوح ابنه وكان في معزل يا بني اركب معنا يا بني اركب معنا ولا تكن صدق الله العلي العظيم. صلوات اللهم صل محمد. Assalamu alaikum jami'an wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I welcome you all to the Islamic House of Wisdom, and we have two holy things going on today. First, it's the month of Ramadan, and secondly, we're celebrating the birth of Imam Hassan al-Mujtaba, our second Imam. So inshallah, we're going to have a celebration after the English program. For that, we're going to have nasheed, some Majina program, candy for the kids, and it's going to be a lot of fun, inshallah. So let's get straight into the English lecture with Dr. Mahdi, ba'da salawati ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allah.
أحسنتم brother Hassan. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. I begin in the name of Allah, the most beneficent, the most merciful. May He shower His blessings on His Messenger Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam and his progeny, which includes the Imam of our time, Imam al-Mahdi ajjalallahu ta'ala farajahu al-sharif. My dear brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. After many years of suffering, loss and pain, the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam was blessed with the news of the birth of his grandson Imam Hassan al-Mujtaba alayhi salam. And when this baby was born, Fatima al-Zahra alayhi salam handed him over to Amir al-Mu'mineen Imam Ali alayhi salam. And Fatima says, "O Ali, name this child." To which Imam Ali returns and says, "I will not name this child before Rasulullah does." And the Holy Prophet makes his way to the house of Fatima al-Zahra, and he says, "I will not name this child, Allah will." To which Jibreel descends and says, "O Prophet of God, Allah is commanding you to name this child Al-Hassan, in which no entity or individual before the birth of Imam al-Hassan was given the name of al-Hassan. Completely new, unique. That the connection between the Holy Prophet and Imam al-Hassan was so strong that when he would walk into the streets, the Holy Prophet would put this Imam on his shoulders. And one of the companions comes across the Holy Prophet and says what? He says, "Welcome to the carrier and the carried." Carrier meaning who? The Holy Prophet. Carried meaning who? Imam Hassan. And Rasulullah turns around and he tells this companion, he says, "Do you know who this man is?" And the companion turns around and says, "Of course, this is your grandson." He says, "No, this is a man in which I love. Allah loves, and Allah loves those who love Him." Why? Because 1400 years later, you and I can distinguish between truth and falsehood because of the second Imam. If it weren't for this second Imam, you and I would be confused today. So what I want to do is I want to spend the second half of our conversation with each other describing what exactly we mean when we say that if it wasn't for Imam Hassan, I would not be able to distinguish between haqq and batil. But before we get to that part of our discussion, I want to delve into the upbringing of this holy figure. You see, if we take a look at science today, we see that the world of biology and science says that there are a couple different factors that influence the entity and the upbringing of a human being. The first one is what? The genetics of an individual. As we all know, the genetics that you and I possess has an effect on our outward physical appearance. One day, one of the companions of the Holy Prophet who had just returned from war comes and sees that his wife has given birth to a baby that was darker in complexion than himself and his wife. So he begins to, have some doubt. There's some fishy business going on. I left my wife and I come back from war and she's giving birth to somebody who's much darker than me or her. What's going on? So she goes to the Holy Prophet and says, "Oh Rasulullah, my wife has given birth to a baby that doesn't look like me. His skin color doesn't match my skin color. What's going on?" How does the Holy Prophet respond? In a way that the person that he's talking to can grasp the subject. You see, yesterday we spoke about one of the important things of discussion with each other. The Holy Prophet shows us that when we discuss with one another, we discuss in a manner that the person that I'm speaking to can relate to it. If I'm going to come and talk about the existence of God to somebody who doesn't believe in God, it's not enough for me to just bring the Holy Quran and say, "Look, my Quran says this. This is why you should believe in God." No, he's going to reject it. This person rejects the Holy Quran. You're bringing the Quran to show him the existence of God? No. You have to speak to individuals in a way that they can understand, on a mutual playing ground. So the Holy Prophet turns to this man and he says that, "Do you own any camels?" And he says, "Yes." Rasulullah says, "What color are your camels?" He says that, "My camels are mostly red." He says, "Amongst your camels, which are mostly red, are there any of them that are darker in color compared to the rest?" He says, "Yes, there are. There are amongst a majority of my red camels, some of them are darker in complexion." Rasulullah says, "Why?" Of course, the Holy Prophet knows, but he wants to engage in conversation. How about you answer the question that you brought up to me? He says, "Why?" He says, there are certain strains that when they get passed down, it could cause the physical appearance and the color of the camels to be different. And the Holy Prophet turns to him and says, "Do you get it now?" And the companion says, "Oh, okay, I understand." So the genetics of an individual contributes not only to the outward appearance, but also the internal framework of every single human being. Notice Rasulullah, he gives an advice. He says, when you come to choose your spouses, choose them very wisely. Why? Because the characteristics of each person is passed down to their offspring. After the death of Fatima al-Zahra alayhi salam, Amir al-Mu'mineen tells his brother Aqil, "Find me a wife who comes from a brave and courageous background." To which Aqil says, "I know none other than Fatima bint Huzam al-Kulaybiyah, who is later known as al-Baneen, who gives birth to 4 children, 4 sons, who die shaheed in Karbala, one of them being Abul Fadl al-Abbas." So you see, genetics can play a role in our own characteristics and our internal traits. In the Battle of Siffin, Amir al-Mu'mineen is fighting alongside Malik al-Ashtar, his companion. And they're going through the opposition. And Malik notices something interesting. He sees that Imam is not fighting as aggressively as he normally does. He's letting some of the enemies go. And Malik, his body count during this Battle of Siffin is much more than the body count of Amir al-Mu'mineen. So Malik, he's joking with Imam. He's having a conversation with Imam in the middle of battle. He's saying, "Look, Imam, today you look a little bit rusty. You don't look like your usual self. You're not going through the opposition like you normally do." Amir al-Mu'mineen turns around and says, "You're just going through the opposition and the enemies and you're not paying attention to anything. Me, before I go and I attack my enemy, I look 5, 10 generations down the line. If I see a mu'min believer in the lineage of this person, I spare them." Which shows you and I a very important point, that our offspring, our children, 5, 10, 15 generations down the line can bring ni'mah to us even after our death. So the first thing that influences every single human being is the genetics. And we take a look at the genetics of Imam al-Hassan. What do we find? When Muawiyah enters Kufa and he goes on top of the pulpit to address the people, Imam Hassan and Imam Hussein are amongst the people. Muawiyah goes up and he begins his sermon by cursing Ali ibn Abi Talib. When Ali is cursed, Imam Hussein begins to rise. Imam Hassan holds him down. And Imam Hassan gets up and he addresses Muawiyah. He says, "O man who is cursing Ali, do you know who I am? I am Hassan, the son of Ali ibn Abi Talib. You are Muawiyah, son of Sakhr." You know Abu Sufyan? His name is Sakhr. What does Sakhr mean? Stone. What does Muawiyah mean? The one who barks. And you know better than I do which animals bark. He says, I am Hassan, the son of Fatima al-Zahra alayhi salam. You are Muawiyah, son of Hind, the one who ate the liver of the uncle of Rasulullah. He says, I am Hassan, the grandson of Rasulullah. You are Muawiyah, the grandson of Harb. What does Harb mean? War. SubhanAllah, look at the difference between the names of Ahlul Bayt and the names of those who oppose them. He says, I am Hassan, the grandson of Sayyidah Khadija. You are Muawiyah, grandson of Ghatila. O Muawiyah, may Allah, Imam Hassan says, may Allah curse the one among us whose lineages are the worst of lineages and whose remembrance brings about hatred. And everybody around the pulpit said, Ameen. Number one, that's the genetics. You compare Imam Hassan and Muawiyah, there's a difference in genetics. The second thing that influences every single individual is their environmental factors. There are two things that affect every single human being, and that is genetics and environmental factors. When you go into the environmental factors, if you read some of the books, they say that two things dictate how an individual is. Number one, how clean their room is. I can tell how an individual, what type of individual you are, just by looking at how organized your room is. That's number one. Number two, who you cover yourself with. Who are the people around you? And it's interesting, I was looking at the autobiography of Benjamin Franklin. Benjamin Franklin, who was one of the founding fathers, he says that my dad, every single night, he would invite a sensible person from the community to come and eat dinner with us. Whether that be our friends, whether it be our neighbors, or a guest who's just visiting the town, our father would invite them to the dinner table. Why? To incite and provoke thoughtful conversation. To the point that when we would sit at the dinner table, we wouldn't even pay attention to the food that was in front of us. If you asked me, Benjamin Franklin says, he says, if you asked me a couple hours after we had dinner what we ate, I wouldn't be able to tell you, but I could tell you the principles that I extracted and the lessons that I learned. How important it is to notice and realize, who do we keep around us? You know, psychology and neuroscience comes and says that 90% of an individual's core brain structure develops by the age of 6 years old. That every single word that we say around a child, up until the age of 6 years old, they develop networks in their brain. Every time they hear that word, it fires. Not only that, but they mimic the actions that they see in front of them inside of their mind as well. You see, when we take a look at the things around us, our brain is actually mimicking and mirroring the things that we're seeing inside of our brain. Even though we're not physically doing anything, our brain is reflecting it. And there was actually a study that they did. They attached electrodes to a group of monkeys in order to analyze neuronal movement. And during this study, one of the lab assistants walks in while eating ice cream. And one of the monkeys notices this happening. And they realize that the region in the brain of the monkey that's responsible for eating food begins to light up. You see? All the stuff that we feed ourselves with on a daily basis, the things that we decide to watch and see, our brain is replicating it inside of our mind. And we look at the environmental factors of Imam Hassan alayhi salam. What do we find? Imam says that my mother Fatima al-Zahra alayhi salam would wake up in the middle of the night and pray. Who would she pray for? The neighbors. Imam Hassan turns to his mother and says, I noticed that you prayed for the neighbors. What about us? To which Sayyidat Nisa al-Alameen says, Al-Jar thumma ad-Dar. First our neighbors and then us. How powerful. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, after that, He reveals a verse to the Holy Prophet in Medina, which said, Fi buyutin adna Allah an turfa wa yudhkara fiha ismuh. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala selects certain households and elevates them Which households does he elevate? Those that remember Allah in abundance. And Abu Bakr comes and he points towards the house of Fatima al-Zahra and he asks Rasulullah, he says, is this verse in regards to the house of Fatima al-Zahra alayhi salam? He says, بَلْ هُوَ مِنْ أَعْظَمِهَا. This is the greatest of households. Notice, when the Holy Prophet built his masjid, he ordered all of his companions to build their houses around the masjid of the Holy Prophet. And every single house had a door which led to the mosque of the Holy Prophet. After this verse was revealed, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala orders the Prophet to tell his companions to close and block every single door that leads to Masjid al-Nabawi. An event that's known as Sadd al-Abwab, closing of the doors. And when the Holy Prophet came and announced that, O companions, Allah has told me that you need to close all your doors towards Masjid al-Nabawi, the first person to give up was Imam Ali. He says, I'll close my door. The Holy Prophet said, no. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told me to tell everyone except the door of Fatima al-Zahra to remain closed. Why? Because that house contains the masters of the youth of paradise. And some of the companions came and they told the Holy Prophet, they said, look, we won't block the door off, but we just won't open it anymore. We won't open it. The Holy Prophet said, no, you need to build a wall. Build a wall so that you can't open it anymore, permanently. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Build the wall so that it is permanently closed. And one of the companions comes and he builds the wall and he leaves a little bit of a window open so that he can see through into Masjid al-Nabawi. And the Holy Prophet comes and says, no. When I say close the door and block it off, I mean block it off completely. Only the door of Fatima remains open. Why? Because everybody recognizes the blessings of this household. When Imam Hassan and Imam Hussein fell ill, Amir al-Mu'mineen and Fatima al-Zahra alayhi salam make a nadhr that for 3 days we were going to fast. And we all have heard the verse, وَيُطْعِمُونَ الطَّعَامَ عَلَى حُبِّهِ مِسْكِينًا وَيَتِيمًا وَعَسِيرًا. That every single night that Imam came to break his fast with Fatima al-Zahra alayhi salam, the first night who came? The poor person. And they give away their iftar. The second night who comes? The orphan. And they give away their iftar. The third night a captive comes. And it's very interesting because this captive wasn't living in the area that Amir al-Mu'mineen's house was in. How is it that a captive knows that the house of Amir al-Mu'mineen and Fatima al-Zahra alayhi salam is a house that's giving? That if I knock on this door, they won't reject me. How is it that they know? And they give their food away to the captive on the third night. And the very next verse says what? إِنَّمَا نُطْعِمُكُمْ لِوَجْهِ اللَّهِ لَا نُرِيدُ مِنْكُمْ جَزَاءً وَلَا شُكُورًا. That they say we give for the sake of Allah and not for your thanks and not to receive anything from you. You see, today, if I do something for someone, at the very least, if they don't repay me, I would love for them to tell me thank you. At the very least. If somebody doesn't appreciate what I do, if somebody doesn't tell me thank you after I have done something for them, I tell myself, this person is such a rude individual. No manners, no respect. His parents didn't teach him anything. Ahlul Bayt says no. It says we give for the sake of Allah. We don't care for your thank you and we don't need your repayment. This is the environment of Imam Hassan. And you compare that to the environment of Muawiyah. What do you find? The household of Muawiyah, from the very beginning until the very end, fought against Rasulullah until they felt like they had no choice but to accept. Keep these differences in mind. Now, us as followers of the Ja'fari school of thought, from the first Imam, Amir al-Mu'mineen, to the 12th Imam, we see no difference when it comes to knowledge, wisdom, status, or position. From the first Imam to the 12th Imam, us as followers of the school of Ahlul Bayt and Ja'fari school of thought, we do not see any difference in terms of any of them when it comes to knowledge, wisdom, status, position. Meaning what? Meaning the knowledge and wisdom of Imam Ali is no different than the knowledge and wisdom of Imam Hassan and Imam Hussein. The ibadah and the worship of the fourth Imam is no different than the ibadah and the worship of the eighth Imam. The bravery of Imam al-Hussein is no different than the bravery of Imam al-Hassan. Very key point, because we hear today somebody comes and says Imam Hussein was brave. He stood up while Imam al-Hassan was not as courageous. What a misconception. And whoever comes and says something like this, it's evident that they haven't taken a look at history. When we take a look at the Prophet, these are ayat of Allah. There's no difference in their perfection. Why? Because their goals are the same. When we say there's no difference, it's because their goal and purpose is the same. What is that? The satisfaction of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, not the satisfaction of those around him. Imam al-Hussein, before he heads towards Kufa, he stops by Medina. He goes to the grave of Rasulullah and he puts his hand up and he prays. He says, "Oh Allah, whatever brings you satisfaction, I want to be successful in." And you fast forward. What were the last words of Imam al-Hussein on the plains of Karbala? What were they? Ridan biridan. Satisfaction with your satisfaction. See, today we have a common misconception that the Imams came with the sole purpose of establishing a government. No, this is not true. If the sole purpose of an Imam is to come and establish a government, then the criteria of a leader would be solely based on their political knowledge. And if we're going to accept this notion, what ends up happening is it opens the door up that after the death of the Holy Prophet, people can come and say what? Say, I want to be the leader. Why? Because number one, I'm older, and number two, I'm more aware. I'm more politically aware. But you and I know that if an Imam and a Prophet was sent to only establish a government, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala didn't need to send prophets. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wouldn't need to send any representatives. If the sole duty and goal was to establish a government, Allah didn't need to send anybody. We, you and I, could have sat down and chosen and elected a person. And if they end up making a mistake, we could go and adjust them. Say, look, you're making a mistake, have a seat. Maybe adjust, fix your problems. No. Amir al-Mu'mineen, after the death of the Holy Prophet, Abu Sufyan comes to him. What does he say? He says, let us take back the khilafah that was taken from you. This position, we know that Rasulullah has given this to you. I will give you the army, I will give you the weaponry and the tools to take back what is rightfully yours. What does Imam Ali turn around and say? He says, we didn't trust you when it came to the revelation of the Holy Quran. You think we're going to trust you when it comes to the interpretation of it? We know as Muslims that there are three different types of jihad. The Imams, depending on the time that they live, it determines which type of jihad they focus on. What do I mean? I give an example. If we can remember this example, we will be able to walk away with a proper understanding. Because when we look at the fourth Imam and afterward, none of them engaged in battle. None of them rallied and gathered people. They came to the Imams and they said, what's wrong with you guys? Let us gather people. Let us take back what is rightfully yours. What are you doing? And what would they do? They would plant gardens. They would come and make farmland and they would do agricultural work. Why? Because the goal of an Imam is to prevent people from regressing back towards the days of Jahiliyyah. Why? So that the truth is clear. That 1400 years later, you and I know where truth and falsehood stands. I give the example of the gardener. When a gardener wants to come and plant a tree or plant flowers, there are two things that we need to take into consideration. Number one is, how educated is the gardener himself? Does he know which season to plant this tree in? Does he know how much sunlight the tree requires? Does he know how much water this tree needs? This is number one. Number two is the ground suitable enough to grow the tree? You see? The gardener can be as educated as we want him to be. He can know exactly when to plant the tree, know exactly how much sunlight it needs, and knows how much water to give it. But if the ground isn't suitable to grow the tree, it doesn't matter how many seeds that gardener plants, that ground will not bear any fruit and won't grow any tree. Meaning what? Meaning the Imams, every single period that an Imam was present, they had the readiness, they had the knowledge. It was the people who were not ready. It was the people who would not accept the government of that Imam. Otherwise, government is not the main goal of an Imam. Imam came here to prevent us from regression. And we have to take a look, what was going on during the time of Imam al-Hassan? What was the environment like? And we have to look at two different factors. The first one is, who is the Hakim of the time? The second is, who were the people? The first, the Hakim. Who was the Hakim? Muawiyah. Muawiyah is known to be one of the most twisted political con-mans in history. He's different than Yazid. You see, there's a difference between Muawiyah and Yazid. Imam al-Hussein, who went up against Yazid, although Imam al-Hussein for 10 years was under the rule of Muawiyah, he went up against Yazid. What's the difference between Muawiyah and Yazid? I tell you. Yazid was somebody who was not embarrassed from covering his flaws. If there's three things that every single Muslim agrees on its sanctity, number one is what? The Holy Kaaba, in which it's incumbent upon every person, if they're able, to visit. Number two is Masjid al-Nabawi, the Green Dome. And number three is Ahlul Bayt, which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reveals in the Holy Quran that they're purified. Yazid, in the span of 2 to 3 years, attacked every single one of them. The Kaaba, he sets on fire. Masjid al-Nabawi, he sends an army and they kill every single man in Masjid al-Nabawi, to the point that they said the people who fought in the battle of Badr no longer existed after that attack. That every woman in Masjid al-Nabawi was raped. Yazid's army. And number three, we all know, he sends an army on the 10th of Muharram and they kill the grandson of Rasulullah. This is Yazid. You see, Yazid was not embarrassed. Very different than Muawiyah. Muawiyah through back doors. Yazid in your face. And I ask all of us, and I hold myself accountable, that when we go on social media, that when we post things and we like things, sometimes we look at the posts from our brothers and sisters, our Muslim brothers and sisters, and we see that they post things and they discuss things that completely throw modesty out the door. And you look at the comments under these posts. You go, girl. You go, guy. Forget all the haters, right? Put aside the haters. Live your life the way that you want to live. At the end of the day, you want to live the life that you want to live, go ahead. But at least have the common courtesy to have a discussion with yourself and realize that if I post this, if I like this and promote something, if I follow that account, will I be held accountable on Yawm al-Qiyamah for potentially misguiding someone else? Are we living like Yazid? This is Yazid. Muawiyah, on the other hand, was very strategic. Very strategic. He would buy people off one by one. One of those individuals was who? Abu Huraira. Abu Huraira, who some revere as one of the most prolific and authentic narrators of a hadith, Muawiyah buys him off. Abu Huraira, how many years did he see the Holy Prophet? How many years was Abu Huraira in the presence of the Holy Prophet? 2 years. 8th year after Hijrah, Abu Huraira comes across the Holy Prophet. In Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah, who have 6 main books, how many narrations do they have from Abu Huraira? 5,000. You take a look at Imam Ali alayhi salam, who was raised by the Holy Prophet from the minute that he was born up until the very last breaths of the Holy Prophet. Imam Ali was next to him. How many ahadith are recorded in the books of Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah across 6 of them? How many? 50. You ask yourself very logically and rationally, if I want to verify a hadith, if I want to prove a hadith is authentic, shouldn't I go to the one who was with the Holy Prophet every single moment? You look at Abdullah ibn Umar. How many hadith? 1,000. One of the wives of the Prophet, how many hadith? 1,000. Imam Hassan and Imam Hussein, 0. Fatima al-Zahra alayhi salam, 0. Why? This is the factor of fabrication imposed by Muawiyah. Muawiyah was very smart. And people would come to Abu Huraira and they would notice that in the battle of Siffin, Abu Huraira would pray behind Imam Ali and he would go eat with Muawiyah. And they come to Abu Huraira and they say, what's going on? You're going to choose a side? You go and you pray behind Imam Ali and then you go eat food with Muawiyah? What side are you on? He says, of course, we go pray behind Imam Ali, but we don't want to eat from the food of Imam Ali. His bread is a little bit too hard. Muawiyah's food is a lot more juicier. This is Abu Huraira, that Muawiyah comes and Muawiyah comes and gathers people like this. Muawiyah, my brothers and sisters, we have to understand, is not a person. He's an ideology, in which our literature describes as Sufyani. Why Sufyani? Because the very first person who opposed Rasulullah was Abu Sufyan. Muawiyah, when we say Muawiyah is not a person, he's an ideology, he's a path, what we mean is the hallmark of this path is to destroy deen using deen. Using the ayat of the Quran, using the ahadith, and assigning himself as the companion of Rasulullah, he destroys deen. Through the garment of Islam, he destroys Islam. And we see that today. Many people come and they put up a flag and claim that they're custodians of this religion, and they turn around and do what? They oppress and they kill and they bomb shrines and they bomb those who go and visit those shrines. I ask everyone, where is it in Islam? Where can we find in the history of Islam where we bomb and we oppress the graveyards of individuals? Muawiyah is at the very essence of this political movement. When we say Muawiyah is not a person, he's an ideology, we mean that he destroys deen undercover. Now, what does Muawiyah do? Muawiyah not only opposes Ahlul Bayt, but he opposes anyone who stands up against him. You take a look, Muawiyah not only attacked Amir al-Mu'mineen, Muawiyah not only attacked Imam Hassan, but he actually killed the first, second, and third caliph's sons. Abdul Rahman ibn Umar, Muawiyah killed. Muhammad ibn Abu Bakr, Muawiyah killed. The son of Uthman, Muawiyah killed. The son of Khalid ibn Walid, Muawiyah killed. Muawiyah did not come as an Islamic leader. Muawiyah came as a ruler. This was the Hakim. Muawiyah sends a letter to Imam Hassan. He says, hand over the Khilafah. And many think that Imam Hassan wrote a letter back saying, sure, why not, of course. No. Imam Hassan addresses and he sends a letter, and I encourage everybody to go and read that letter. Imam Hassan sends a letter to Muawiyah and says, this is Hassan, the son of Imam Ali, Amir al-Mu'mineen, the son of Fatima al-Zahra and the grandson of Rasulullah, addressing Muawiyah, the son of Abu Sufyan, the son of Hind, the one who ate the liver of the uncle of Rasulullah. And I will not give you something that Allah has destined for me. Muawiyah then sends a letter back. He says, let the sword be the judge then. This is number one. Number two, the environmental factors of Imam Hassan were what? After Muawiyah sends this letter and he grabs and he attracts 60,000 people. You know Muawiyah, he sends a letter to Egypt and Jordan. He says that Allah, through the grace of Allah, pay attention. He says, through the grace of Allah, Ali ibn Abi Talib was assassinated. Could you imagine the audacity? That Muawiyah is saying, because of the rahmah and the mercy of Allah, Ali ibn Abi Talib was assassinated. And the followers of Ali ibn Abi Talib right now in Kufa, they're confused. It is up to you and I to liberate them. And because of this one letter, Muawiyah was able to gather 60,000 troops. When Imam Hassan comes to his people, there's only two people in history that unanimously every single person pledged allegiance to. After the death of the Holy Prophet in Saqifa, people, when they were trying to see who was going to be the leader after the Holy Prophet, they had a vote, they had an argument, one busted out a sword. There's only two people in history in which all the people unanimously agreed on their leadership. Imam Ali alayhi salam and Imam Hassan. Every single person in Kufa, because remember the capital is in Kufa, every single person in Kufa pledged their allegiance to Imam Hassan. And they told him, our heart is with you, our love is with you. Whoever loves you, we love. And whoever attacks you, we will attack. And we will stand next to you until the very last moments of your life. But were they honest? When we say that the capital of Islam was in Kufa, what does that mean? It means that people from all different races, cultures, backgrounds came and settled in Kufa. And these people comprised of many different groups. Number one, you had those who were indifferent. Either Imam Hassan or Muawiyah makes no difference to me. The second group that you had were those who were the Khawarij. The Khawarij, the same ones who attacked Amir al-Mu'mineen in the battle of Nahrawan, who turned their back against Amir al-Mu'mineen in the battle of Siffin. These Khawarij were made up the population in Kufa. What were they waiting for? To avenge themselves and attack Imam Hassan. This is the second group. And the third and smaller group is those who followed Imam Hassan. So what ends up happening? Muawiyah assembles an army of 60,000, and Imam al-Hassan organizes 12,000 troops under the leadership of Ubaydullah ibn Abbas. Who is Ubaydullah ibn Abbas? The cousin of Imam Hassan. He sends an army of 12,000 towards Syria. Muawiyah, you have to understand, he doesn't want to fight. He knows that if we're going to continue a battle, he doesn't stand a chance. Because that very small group of followers of Imam al-Hassan, that is more than enough. So Muawiyah sends a letter to Ubaydullah ibn Abbas, the cousin of Imam Hassan. And he says, look, let's put this war to the side. I'll send you 1,000 golden dinars. Each golden dinar today, if we want to equate, is worth about $2,000-$3,000. If you do the math, it's equal to millions of dollars. Sometimes we think to ourselves, how could these people turn their back against the Imam of our time? I'm telling you, they offered millions of dollars to them. Millions. And Ubaydullah ibn Abbas accepts. And he goes on the side of Muawiyah. And what do you think that does to the morale of the army? 2/3 of the army join Muawiyah. Does Imam Hassan stop? No. 2/3 of his army has just been lost. Does Imam Hassan say, okay, forget about it, maybe another time? No. Imam Hassan says, we will continue to fight. We will continue to go against Muawiyah. What does Muawiyah do? He sees that Imam Hassan is not backing down. He sends agents and spies amongst the camp of Imam Hassan, saying that Imam al-Hassan has given up the Khilafah. And it causes confusion amongst the people. And what do? Havoc begins to arise. That when Imam Hassan, in his own camp, he's praying on the prayer rug, they came and they ripped the prayer rug from underneath him. They stole his belongings and stabbed him in the leg. These are the people that Imam Hassan had around him. These are the same people. Imam Hassan turns around and he says, Wallah, I would have fought Muawiyah until the very end. But the same people who committed their hearts to me turned their swords against me. These were the people. These were the people that surrounded Imam Hassan. So in order to safeguard the religion of Islam, Imam Hassan goes into an agreement. My dear brothers and sisters, this agreement was a strategical method put forth by Imam Hassan. Why? Because like I said in the beginning, 1400 years later, we're able to know what side Muawiyah is on. We're able to distinguish who is Salih and who is Fasiq. So Imam Hassan writes this agreement and he puts several different conditions. And you might ask yourself, when Imam Hassan writes an agreement with Muawiyah, does it mean that Imam Hassan agrees with the mentality and the ideology of Muawiyah? No. When the Holy Prophet gathered his companions and they were going towards Mecca to perform the Hajj, the Quraysh, the idol worshippers of Mecca, send a couple agents to go stop them from entering Mecca. And in order to preserve the sanctity of Mecca, the Holy Prophet goes into an agreement known as the Treaty of Hudaybiyah. Now, the Holy Prophet, when he agrees to the Treaty of Hudaybiyah with the idol worshippers, does it mean that Rasulullah is weak? No. The Holy Prophet, who goes into agreement with the Quraysh, with the idol worshippers of Mecca, does it mean that Rasulullah accepts the mentality and the philosophy of idol worshippers? No. Muawiyah goes into an agreement with Imam al-Hassan. Imam Hassan stipulates several different conditions. The first one being what? O Muawiyah, you will stop the cursing of my father Ali ibn Abi Talib. What does Muawiyah do? He makes it a law to curse Ali ibn Abi Talib. That every single sermon that is conducted, if they don't curse Amir al-Mu'mineen, they have to gather the people back, allow the person on the pulpit to curse him, and then they would leave. First point of the treaty agreement, broken. The second point of the agreement, Imam Hassan stipulates, is that you will stop harassing and killing the followers of Ahlul Bayt. What does he do? Hujr ibn Adi al-Kindi and his son murdered. Why? Because they refused to curse the name of Ali ibn Abi Talib. Second condition, broken. Third condition, you will give a portion of the Baytul Mal to those families who suffered because of the battle of Siffin at the hands of Muawiyah and the battle of Jamal at the hands of other people. Fourth stipulation, Muawiyah will not introduce any fabrications in the religion of Islam. That he will follow the Quran, the Sunnah of the Prophet, and the Sunnah of the Caliphs. What does Muawiyah come and do? He comes and he changes the Friday prayer, Salat al-Jum'ah, to Wednesday. Salat al-Jum'ah is prayed on when? I don't know. Salat al-Jum'ah is prayed on what day? Friday. Muawiyah comes and changes Friday prayer to Wednesday. You know, Imam Ali says, if I just had one follower of Muawiyah on my side, I would be victorious. One follower of Muawiyah is equivalent to several of my soldiers and followers. Look at the conviction of the people that followed Muawiyah. That they follow him and they pray Friday prayer on a Wednesday. The fifth stipulation is that after your death, O Muawiyah, you will hand back the Khilafah to either me, Imam Hassan, or Imam al-Hussein, and you know better than I do exactly what occurred. Muawiyah hands over the Khilafah to Yazid. There is a sixth stipulation, my brothers and sisters, and I'll conclude with this, that is sometimes overlooked in this treaty. Imam Hassan says that you will not call yourself Amirul Mu'mineen, and no person who wants to convert to Islam can come and give their shahada to you. Very important. What is Imam Hassan showing? He's showing that this Muawiyah did not come as an Islamic entity. Damascus is quite away from Mecca, is quite away from Medina. Why? Because Muawiyah wanted to establish a political system. He didn't come as an Islamic entity. Imam al-Hassan is saying, you will not call yourself commander of the faithful. You will not call yourself the commander of the faithful, and you cannot take the shahada of any individual. Look at the strategic mind of Imam al-Hassan. He's showing to you and I that, look, this Muawiyah was able and was willing to agree to even this stipulation. And what does Muawiyah say when he takes rule? He says, I have not came to govern over you guys so that you can pray and fast. I have came to rule over you. Muawiyah says this. He says, you think I came to establish prayer? You think I came to establish fasting and Hajj? No. I came to rule over you. People want to come today and say Imam Hassan gave up his wilayah. Habibi, can you give up something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given you? Amir al-Mu'mineen for 25 years, when 3 people came and took authority, did that mean Imam Ali gave up his wilayah? No. Imams cannot give up something that was destined to them by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we see that Imam Hassan was truly a gharib. You know, I was talking to a few of the brothers who were trying to prepare the nasheed for tonight, they said sometimes it's difficult to find the nasheed about Imam Hassan. Not many people talk about Imam Hassan. Not many people celebrate and commemorate Imam Hassan. That this Imam was a gharib. Even in his own house, Muawiyah tells the wife of Imam al-Hassan, Ju'da, that if you poison Hassan, I will give you my son Yazid in marriage. This Ju'da goes, and history has it, that Muawiyah orders one of the strongest poisons from Rome. One of the strongest poisons from Rome, Muawiyah ordered. And Muawiyah gives this poison to Ju'da. Ju'da comes and poisons Imam al-Hassan, and Muawiyah turns around and tells Ju'da, I'm not going to give you my son Yazid in marriage. Here's 100,000 dirhams. Ju'da says, but you promised me. You promised me your son Yazid in marriage. He says, if you had the audacity to poison the grandson of Rasulullah, what are you going to do with my son? No way, no thank you. Here's 100,000 dirhams. Imam al-Hassan is poisoned, and he brings his brother Imam al-Hussein. He says, today is my final day in this dunya, and tomorrow will be the first day that I visit Rasulullah. And Imam al-Hussein turns to him and says, tell me, O brother, who was it that poisoned you? Imam al-Hassan turns around and says, don't worry about it. The day of judgment will come, and Allah will judge. This is the character of Imam al-Hassan. Kareem wa Ahlul Bayt. His generosity extends to even his enemies. They say that there were 3 different times in the life of Imam al-Hassan where he completely gave his wealth away. Could you imagine? Could you imagine giving your house and your cars away multiple different times completely to people? This is Imam al-Hassan. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to guide us in the light of this Imam. We recite the Surah Al-Fatiha for all those who are suffering under oppression, from all those who are affected by this pandemic, all those who are not able to afford a meal, all those who are not able to break their fast on a proper meal during this holy month of Ramadan. We pray for them, and we pray for you and your families. Ba'da salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Thank you, Brother Mahdi, for that great lecture on Imam al-Hassan. Just a couple announcements before we start with our celebration for the birth of Imam al-Hassan alayhi salam. So we've started a great month, the month of Ramadan, but we're halfway done. 15 days are officially done. How much have we accomplished? Have we reached our goals? Have we started on our goals? If not, we should get started on those, whether it was to read the Quran every day, to learn something new every day. There's still time. So take advantage of the rest of this month. And, you never know. I had one of my friends, his uncle died, I think 4 days before Ramadan started. Imagine. You never know if you're going to be alive for the next Ramadan, so you have to make sure that you are taking the most advantage of this month. We have for the ladies, we have a monthly Quran recitation group where the ladies, they read 1 juz, or they complete the Quran every month, but each lady, each hajj is to read 1 juz per month. Together, they complete the whole Quran monthly. We have the boys program, youth nights, Fridays, 5 to 7 p.m. If you want to register your child for that. So it's for boys in the elementary and middle school. See me, or the office for that. We have Islamic classes on Saturdays, 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. Islamic classes, we go over Usuluddin, Furu'uddin, how to pray, how to fast, do wudu, these types of things. We have Girl Scouts also on Friday, 5 to 7. So if you have sons and a daughter, you bring your son for youth nights, you bring your daughter for Girl Scouts. We have the Arabic school also on Saturday. That's from 10 to 2 o'clock. We have Dua Kumail weekly. With Ramadan, we discontinued it, but it is online. And in person, we have Dua Kumail every Thursday after Maghrib prayers. We have the Friday prayers every Friday, Salat al-Jum'ah, 1:30 p.m. And we have food distribution right after Friday prayer. So 2:30, 3 o'clock, we start the food distribution. We have a blood drive coming up in June. So watch out for that. You have to follow us on our socials, Instagram, Facebook, so you can sign up for that and take advantage of it. We have COVID vaccine clinics. Again, you have to follow up with our socials so you can sign up for that also. If you would like to volunteer, or if you would like to have your kids volunteer for any of our programs, please see me or the office. And the last announcement that I have for tonight is that we have an Eid festival for Eid al-Fitr, and you have to RSVP for that beforehand. So if you want to RSVP for this Eid festival, we're going to have a bunch of vendors, some bouncy houses, different activities. It's going to be a lot of fun outside. If I'm not mistaken, it's Saturday. So if Eid is on Thursday, it'll be that Saturday. And the time is 3 to 6, Hajj Saida, correct? 3 to 6 p.m.? 2 to 6 p.m.? 2 to 5, okay. So the time is 2 to 5 p.m. Saturday, the Saturday after Eid. So inshallah, we see you there and we see your children there. Now, inshallah, we'll continue with our nasheed program. بعد الصلاة على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. So inshallah, we're going to do a poem, we're going to do one nasheed, and then we're going to do the very famous Majina Majina. إن في الجنة نهرا من لبن إن في الجنة نهرا من لبن لعلي وحسين وحسن لعلي وحسين وحسن كل من كان محبا لهم كل من كان محبا لهم يدخل الجنة من غير حزن يدخل الجنة من غير حزن إن في الجنة نهر من لبن جميعا إن في الجنة نهرا من لبن لعلي وحسين وحسن لعلي وحسين وحسن إن في الجنة نهرا من لبن إن في الجنة نهر من لبن لعلي وحسين وحسن لعلي وحسين وحسن صلوات اللهم صل على محمد. So this is where we're going to need your cooperation with the clapping and also the chorus. رمضان تجلى وابتسم طوبى للعبد إذا اغتنم رمضان تجلى وابتسم طوبى للعبد إذا اغتنم فالخير وفير إن صرم ينجي المأثوم من النار رمضان تجلى وابتسم طوبى للعبد إذا اغتنم رمضان تجلى وابتسم طوبى للعبد إذا اغتنم فالخير وفير إن صرم ينجي المأثوم من النار رمضان تضوى في الكون وتلالأ في ساحل العين ومد لنا كف العون للفوز بحب الغفار. رمضان تجلى وابتسم طوبى للعبد إذا اغتنم.
رمضان تجلى
وابتسم
جميعا
طوبى للعبد إذا اغتنم. فالخير وفير إن صرما ينجي المأثوم من النار. هو شهر الله ومضيفه بالأجر الوافر زينه. عجبا ما أجزله من رزق وفره الباري. رمضان تجلى وابتسم طوبى للعبد إذا اغتنم. فالخير وفير إن صرما ينجي المأثوم من النار. صلوات اللهم صل. So inshallah we're going to recite Majina, and this has a lot of energy. We can't have it how we did Ramadan Tajalla. We need your energy, because when we hear your energy we can recite longer, we can recite better. So inshallah we need your clapping and we need to hear your voices. The chorus is Majina, Majina, Lawla al-Hasan, Majina. Very simple. Majina, Majina, Lawla al-Hasan, Majina. Sallu ala Muhammad wa al Muhammad. Majina, Majina. Majina, Majina, Lawla al-Hasan, Majina. Majina, Majina, Lawla al-Hasan, Majina.
Majina, Majina,
لولا الحسن ما جينا ما جينا ما جينا.
لولا الحسن ما جينا ما جينا ما جينا. لولا الحسن ما جينا ما جينا ما جينا. لولا الحسن ما جينا.
يا رب ندعو كلنا نقول
آمين آمين.
يا رب ندعو كلنا نقول
آمين آمين.
جاه المبعوث المرسول
آمين آمين.
جاه المبعوث المرسول
آمين آمين.
رايت الفرحة علينا الطول
آمين آمين.
رايت الفرحة علينا الطول
آمين آمين.
وتحفظها النعمة وما تزول
آمين آمين.
بارينا بارينا رب العرش بارينا. ما جينا ما جينا لولا الحسن ما جينا
ما جينا. جميعا جميعا.
ما جينا ما جينا لولا الحسن
ما جينا
ما جينا ما جينا
لولا الحسن ما جينا.
يا رب بجاه الكرار.
آمين آمين.
يا رب بجاه الكرار.
آمين آمين.
نور من عندنا الأبصار. آمين آمين. يا رب واحفظ هاي الدار.
آمين آمين.
ولا تخمد منها الأنوار.
آمين آمين.
تدرينا تدرينا شيعة علي تدرينا
تدرينا تدرينا
شيعة علي تدرينا. ما جينا ما جينا لولا الحسن ما جينا ما جينا ما جينا لولا الحسن ما جينا.
انت الخالق والوهاب.
آمين آمين.
انت الخالق والوهاب.
آمين آمين.
جاهم العتر الأطياب.
آمين آمين.
جاهم العتر الأطياب.
آمين آمين.
يا الفاتح من لطفك باب.
آمين آمين.
يا ترزقنا بغير حساب.
نجينا نجينا من كل خطر نجينا ما جينا ما جينا لولا الحسن ما جينا جميعا ما جينا ما جينا لولا الحسن ما جينا ما جينا
لولا الحسن باسمك ندعي يا رحمن
آمين آمين
باسمك ندعي يا رحمن
آمين آمين
جاه المولود برمضان
آمين آمين
بجاه المولود برمضان
آمين آمين
مشينا بدرب الإيمان
آمين آمين
واجعلنا على الحق خوان آمين
آمين
يهدينا
يهدينا نور الحسن يهدينا 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 نور الحسن يهدينا ما جينا ما جينا لولا الحسن ما جينا ما جينا ما جينا حسن
ما جينا
louder louder لولا الحسن ما جينا
هي بيدك سر التكوين
آمين آمين
هي بيدك سر التكوين
آمين آمين
باسمك ندعي بجاه حسين
آمين آمين
باسمك ندعي بجاه حسين
آمين آمين
وأولاد التسعة الطيبين
آمين آمين
وأولاد التسعة الطيبين
آمين آمين
احشرنا ويا المعصومين
آمين آمين
خلينا دوم بفرح
خلينا دوم بفرحة خلينا ما جينا ما جينا لولا الحسن ما جينا ما جينا ما جينا لولا الحسن ما جينا louder we have to be louder ما جينا لولا الحسن ما جينا ما جينا ما جينا
لولا الحسن ما جينا
يا رب الجاه الكرار
آمين آمين
نور من عدنا الأبصار
آمين آمين
يا رب واحفظ هاي الدار
آمين آمين
ولا تخمد منها الأنوار
آمين آمين
تدرينا شيعة علي تدرينا شيعة علي تدرينا ما جينا لولا الحسن ما جينا لولا الحسن ما جينا لولا الحسن ما جينا صلوات اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. So inshallah the youth are getting their snacks and their candy and the Eidi from us, and inshallah we will conclude with dua al-faraj بعد الصلوات على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. If we can all stand for dua al-faraj. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم كن لوليك الحجة ابن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل وليا وحافظا وقائدا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك طوعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم صل على Muhammad wa al Muhammad. Again, very important announcement. We have the Eid festival this Saturday after Eid. So Eid al-Fitr, 2 to 5 p.m. Inshallah, we see you all there. You have to register before. So inshallah, we see you there and outside for refreshments. And tomorrow for our program at 10 p.m. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.